I'm going to be doing a very bad Humphrey Bogart impersonation. Plus, I have a scruffy face. This can mean only one thing. I'm going to be talking about the goodbye girl. Sweetheart.
Party's gotta be over by 9 a.m. Otherwise, it's another $5 for the suit.
From Warner Brothers, it's the 1977 romantic comedy, The Goodbye Girl, starring Richard Dreyfuss and Marcia Mason.
I thought you said you were decent.
I am decent. I also happen to be naked.
Welcome to Reading Between the Lines. Once again, I want to remind all of our viewers that there's going to be spoilers, sweetheart.
I like to take showers every morning, and I don't like the panties drying on the rod.
The Goodbye Girl is the story of down-on-her-luck dancer Paula McFadden, played by Marcia Mason. McFadden finds herself in love over and over and over again, always to be turned down at the end by actors. And lo and behold, what happens is she finds herself a victim of circumstances and in a situation where she has to depend upon her livelihood and the protection of her daughter from, of all people, an actor, played by Richard Dreyfuss. The screenplay of The Goodbye Girl was written by Neil Simon. Now, Neil Simon originally wrote this for Marcia Mason and Robert De Niro. And the original title of the movie was Bogart Slept Here, and it was supposed to be about the story of a couple who, how do they deal with success type of things. But the comedy wasn't played well by De Niro. De Niro and Mason just didn't work well off of one another. The original director, who was Mike Nichols, left the production. And all of a sudden they get Richard Dreyfuss, and they like the chemistry between Dreyfuss and Mason, and so you get a rewrite, you get a new script, and a much more romantic, comedic version of what Bogart Slept Here, which ends up being The Goodbye Girl. Now, Neil Simon was very big in the 70s. He had a lot of his stage plays become screenplays, and a lot of his screenplays that were nominated. He won several Tony Awards for his stage plays, things like The Odd Couple, Biloxi Blues, to name a few. And then, of course, when you look at his screenplay credits, you're looking at things like, The Sunshine Boys, California Suite, The Heartbreak Kid, Cheap Detective, The Prisoner of Second Avenue. These are, just to go on and on. So he was a very renowned stage and screen writer. And of course, he was also married to Marcia Mason. And so being married to Marcia Mason, he was really tailoring this script for her. And it shows. I mean, you could tell that this was a very good vehicle for Mason. Now, Marcia Mason was also very big in the 70s because she was nominated, I want to say 4 times for Best Actress. She never won, but she was nominated like 4 times for her performances. And 3 of those performances were written by her then husband, Neil Simon. And so this script was written for her. So you can see this was very much a vehicle for Marcia Mason. And she is great in this part. She is funny, she is vulnerable, she is all of those things. She plays the down on her luck damsel in distress very, very well. And the chemistry with Richard Dreyfuss's character works very, very well. And so between the combination of the Neil Simon script and the vehicle for Marcia Mason, you would think that this movie would be just about that, but it's not. Enter Richard Dreyfuss. Richard Dreyfuss was one of those actors in the 1970s that just had one of those decades that I think every actor kind of envies, because when you look at the films he got to make in the 1970s, starting with American Graffiti, okay, then you have Jaws, then you have Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then you top it off with The Goodbye Girl. That's a pretty good decade of films. 3 of those films are on the AFI's top 100 movies of all time. And in the 4th film, The Goodbye Girl, he wins Best Actor. That's not a bad decade. You got those 4 films on your film credit. That's not a bad decade. And so you're looking at 3 people at the peak of their skills. Between Simon, Mason, and Dreyfuss, they're at the top of their game, and you get this wonderful romantic comedy, The Goodbye Girl. Richard Dreyfuss steals the show. There's no doubt about it, he steals the show. In every scene, he is excellent. And he has the type of role, this role of Elliot Garfield, this down on his luck, actor, he has the type of role that every actor wants. This is the dream role for actors, because you get to play the comedy, the drama, you get to play the wise old man that knows everything. You get to be the kind of a prophet, and then you get to see vulnerability. You get to see neurosis. You know what I'm saying? You've got foibles. It's all combined. So there's a lot of aspects to the character that you get to play, and Dreyfuss plays them brilliantly. And there's a couple of areas where you see that. One, of course, is the combination between him and Mason working off of each other, between their one-liners back and forth. Okay, and then of course there's the scenes that he has with the kid. You know, Marsha Mason's character has a daughter, Lucy, and she's about 10 years old. And he has these scenes that he does with Quinn Cummings, who, by the way, Quinn Cummings is really good in this show as well. And then, of course, you have the stage play. Every actor's worst nightmare, to get the worst direction in the world for a role that you dream about. The Richard III production, where he has to play Richard III. Well, you have to see it to believe it.
I took him for the plainest, harmless creature that ever breathed upon the earth, a Christian. Made in my book.
There's no doubt about Dreyfuss's performance. It is brilliant. He has the kind of role, like I said, that actors love to have, because you get to play the entire gauntlet of emotions that's out there. And so between the comedy and the drama and the romance and everything else, it just works. And you know, he's great. What can I say? So when you watch The Goodbye Girl, like I said, you're seeing three people at their peak. You know, Simon's play, Mason and Dreyfuss working well off of one another, and like I said, Quinn Cummings she's very good in her role as Lucy as well. Where it may not work for people is Simon's comedy, because some of his comedy is kind of one zinger snap, and it's a theatrical comedy, and so sometimes that style doesn't work. Sometimes you might think that it's forced. Sometimes when you listen to like Marsha Mason, some of her things do feel a little bit forced. So if you're looking for that, you know, especially if you're looking at it from a critical standpoint, some of her things do look forced, whereas when Dreyfuss does things, they seem to come a little bit more natural than the Mason character. The other thing to look at is the fact that it's set in New York. And of course we're talking about actors in New York. And this is one of the same thing, I think, when you look at that New York, you know, sense of humor, and having New York as a backdrop. And so it's like some people really, really love Seinfeld, and then some people don't, okay? And some people really, really love Neil Simon, and some people don't. And so that's really, you know, one of the things. So if it's your style of comedy, you're going to love it. If it's not, you may not like it as much. But there's no denying that when you start watching the movie and Richard Dreyfuss comes onto the screen, you're going to watch the movie. Because Richard Dreyfuss is that good in the movie. Okay? They redid the movie in 2004, and they had Jeff Daniels and Patricia Heaton. They did this for TNT, and that version was pretty good, but it's nowhere near the level of watching Marsha Mason and Richard Dreyfuss. I mean, they're good. It's a good performance. It's entertaining, but it's nowhere near as good as the 77 version. They've turned this screenplay into a musical. So this is it's been done in different fashions, but not quite like its original version of 1977. Okay, so if you're really wanting to watch a nice romantic comedy, The Goodbye Girl is for you. And on my scale of 0 to 100, I'm going to give The Goodbye Girl a 90. Hey, thank you so much for watching Reading Between the Lines. I've got some more videos coming along the way. Please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much.